The night was filled with glitter and laughter. A grand party held in a luxurious mansion that seemed to shine brighter than the city lights outside. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, reflecting tiny rainbows across the polished marble floors. Guests in elegant dresses and sharp suits moved gracefully across the room, holding champagne flutes and exchanging polite smiles. It was the kind of place where wealth and status were displayed as easily as jewelry and designer shoes, and the atmosphere was both exciting and intimidating. Among the crowd moved a young waitress, quietly carrying trays of drinks and small appetizers. Her uniform was simple, clean, and professional, but compared to the lavish gowns and tailored suits around her, she looked like a shadow passing through a world that seemed far away from her own. She had always worked hard, taking odd jobs and extra shifts just to support herself and her family. Nights like this were not uncommon for her, serving at events she could never imagine attending as a guest. She had grown used to being invisible, blending into the background, and focusing only on her tasks. Despite her usual composure, tonight she felt a strange mixture of excitement and nervousness. The mansion was filled with the sound of music, the chatter of the elite, and the occasional laughter that rang like bells. There was an energy in the air that made her heart beat faster, a sense that something unusual might happen, though she had no idea what. As she moved through the crowd, refilling glasses and balancing trays, she noticed a man who immediately drew attention. He was a wealthy businessman, tall and confident, with an air that made people instinctively respect or fear him. His eyes scanned the room like a predator searching for its prey, and when they landed on her, the waitress felt a small shiver run down her spine. There was something in his gaze that made her uneasy, a mix of curiosity and amusement, as if he already had a plan in mind. The rich man approached, his polished shoes clicking against the marble, and smiled in a way that seemed more like a challenge than a greeting. The guests around him noticed and whispered quietly, intrigued by what might happen next. The waitress tried to focus on her work, serving the drinks with a smile, but she could feel the tension building. Something was about to change, and she didn't yet know what it would be. In another corner of the mansion, musicians played soft background music, adding a gentle rhythm to the event. The sound of the piano floated through the air, mingling with the laughter and conversation, creating an atmosphere both elegant and inviting. The waitress often loved music, though she rarely had a chance to enjoy it while working. Tonight, the piano's notes felt different somehow, as if hinting that her life might shift in ways she could not imagine. The guests moved in clusters, discussing business deals, art collections, and vacation plans, completely unaware of the quiet determination that lived in the young woman weaving through their midst. She had learned over time to ignore judgmental looks and whispered comments, focusing instead on her duties and keeping her dignity intact. Yet, even in this world of luxury and arrogance, there was a part of her that quietly dreamed of recognition, of proving her own worth in ways the elite would never expect. As she carried another tray of sparkling drinks, she felt the rich man's eyes on her again. This time, he took a step closer, speaking to someone nearby but glancing back at her with a smirk. The crowd seemed to sense the tension, and a few curious glances were cast her way. For the first time in the evening, the waitress felt truly seen, though she wasn't sure if it was good or bad. She continued her work with steady hands, careful not to let her nerves show. She noticed a grand piano at the center of the room, shining under the chandelier lights. It was a beautiful instrument, one that seemed to demand attention just by being there. Guests occasionally glanced at it, some with admiration, others with indifference. To the young woman, it represented something she had always loved but rarely had the chance to play. She could feel the music calling to her, even from a distance, stirring memories of quiet evenings at home when she would hum or tap out simple melodies, lost in the world of sound. The rich man's movements became more deliberate, almost theatrical. He seemed to be planning to draw attention to her, as if he wanted to create a spectacle. The waitress sensed it, a feeling that made her stomach twist with worry. She wondered why he was focusing on her of all people, a mere servant among so many wealthy guests. But she had learned to keep her composure, to respond with calmness even when situations seemed unfair or intimidating. Despite the underlying fear, there was also a spark of courage growing inside her. She had faced challenges before, moments when she had to stand tall despite feeling small. This night might be another test, one that would require her to be brave in ways she had not imagined. She reminded herself to breathe, to move gracefully, and to do her best no matter what happened. The crowd around her continued their conversations, unaware of the story quietly unfolding at the edges of their attention. The atmosphere in the mansion was electric, a mix of elegance, tension, and anticipation. Guests sipped their drinks, laughed, and clinked glasses, completely oblivious to the quiet drama that was about to unfold. The waitress carried another tray carefully, her mind focused on staying composed, yet her heart raced with an unspoken anticipation. Something in the air hinted at change, at a moment that could shift the course of her evening, perhaps even her life. And as the piano notes drifted through the room, gentle and inviting, the young woman felt a connection she could not ignore. It was as if the music was speaking to her, reminding her of hidden talents and unfulfilled dreams. She walked past the clusters of guests, her steps measured and confident, though inside she felt a storm of emotions. Fear, hope, excitement, and determination all at once. Little did she know, the night was about to take a turn she could never have predicted. The rich man, who had initially seen her as someone to amuse himself at, was about to set a challenge that would change the way everyone in that room saw her. What had started as a simple evening of luxury and socializing was on the brink of becoming a moment that would reveal true talent, courage, and the power of standing tall in the face of humiliation. As she continued her work, balancing trays and offering polite smiles, she couldn't yet see the full picture. But there was a sense of inevitability in the air, a feeling that this night was not just another job, another event to serve. It was a moment that held the possibility of transformation, a moment where the ordinary could become extraordinary, and where the quiet strength of one person could challenge the assumptions of an entire room. The guests continued their conversations, the clinking of glasses and soft music blending into a background hum, unaware of the tension building near the piano. The waitress moved with purpose, each step measured, each action deliberate, keeping herself composed while her mind raced with questions about what might happen next. She had learned to navigate difficult situations with grace, and she knew that no matter what occurred, she had the power to respond with dignity and poise. And so the night went on, glittering and bright, filled with laughter and chatter, while the young woman worked quietly, unknowingly preparing for a moment that would demand her courage, her talent, and her heart. The stage was set, the audience unaware, and the first notes of an unforgettable story were about to be played. The atmosphere in the grand mansion shifted subtly as the rich man's gaze followed the young waitress. He seemed to take pleasure in creating a spectacle, a quiet smirk on his face that suggested he had just thought of a new form of entertainment for the party. The guests continued to mingle, but a few of them noticed the tension, sensing that something was about to happen. The rich man walked confidently toward the center of the room where the grand piano stood, commanding attention with every step. The music from the background musicians softened, as if the night itself was preparing for a moment that would capture everyone's focus. The young waitress continued her work, carrying trays and offering smiles, but she could feel the weight of the man's gaze. Her hands trembled slightly, and her heart beat faster than usual. She had faced difficult people before, but something about this moment felt different. The air was thick with expectation, and she instinctively knew that the rich man was planning to draw her out into the center of the room for reasons that were far from kind. Guests began to notice the interaction, some whispering to each other with curiosity. They had seen wealthy men challenge staff before, often for amusement, and the rich man's reputation for arrogance made them all anticipate a moment of embarrassment. The waitress, however, kept her composure, taking deep breaths to calm herself. She reminded herself that she had handled difficult situations before, that she had the strength to face challenges with dignity. The rich man reached her and spoke, his voice loud enough to be heard over the soft music. He suggested that she play the piano, his words laced with amusement and a hint of mockery. A few guests laughed quietly, already expecting her to stumble, to make mistakes, and to create a spectacle for the amusement of the wealthy crowd. The young woman paused, feeling the eyes of everyone in the room on her. It was a moment that could have been paralyzing, yet she felt something stir within her, a determination not to let fear control her actions. She approached the piano, her steps careful and measured, trying to maintain her usual grace under pressure. Each step seemed heavier than the last, the polished floor reflecting the light from the chandeliers and the nervousness in her own mind. The rich man watched her with a mixture of amusement and curiosity, convinced that he would soon witness a failure that would entertain everyone. The guests watched in silence, some leaning forward slightly, their expressions a mix of skepticism and anticipation. When she reached the piano, she paused for a moment, placing her hands gently on the keys. The cold surface felt familiar in a strange way, reminding her of evenings when she would hum melodies quietly at home. She could feel the subtle tension in the room, the way the air seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the first note to break the silence. She closed her eyes briefly, taking a deep breath, centering herself, and reminding herself that she was capable of more than anyone in the room might assume. The rich man, growing impatient, leaned slightly to watch her more closely. He expected hesitation, a mistake, a sign of nervousness that would confirm his assumptions about her place in the social hierarchy. But instead, he was met with calm determination. The young woman began to play. The first few notes were soft, almost hesitant, but they carried a clarity and emotion that immediately drew the attention of the crowd. The whispers stopped, and the room became still, as if the music had cast a gentle spell over everyone present. Guests who had expected entertainment at her expense were surprised to find themselves captivated instead. The simple melody began to evolve into something more complex, demonstrating not only skill but a deep understanding of the music. The young woman's fingers moved with grace and precision, each note intentional and expressive. The piano seemed to come alive under her touch, its sound filling the room with a richness that no one had anticipated. The rich man's smirk faltered slightly as he realized that his plan to embarrass her was not unfolding as he had intended. He had expected awkwardness, mistakes, and discomfort, but what he was witnessing was the opposite. The music revealed a side of her that no one in that room had seen before, a hidden talent, a depth of emotion, and a confidence that could not be underestimated. The audience's reaction began to change from anticipation to awe, their initial skepticism replaced with admiration. As the melody continued, some guests exchanged glances of disbelief, while others simply stopped talking, fully absorbed by the unexpected performance. The young waitress played not for attention or praise, but because she was compelled to express herself, to show a part of who she truly was. Each note reflected her inner strength, her patience, and the countless hours she had spent practicing and perfecting her skill away from the world's eyes. The rich man, who had initially thought he could control the situation, felt a shift in power. The laughter and whispers that had once been directed at her now turned to silence and respect. He realized that his attempt to create a spectacle of humiliation had backfired, that the young woman's courage and talent were turning the situation entirely around. Guests began to clap softly, some nodding in approval, as the realization dawned that the performance was extraordinary. The young woman did not let the attention distract her. She continued to play, her focus entirely on the music and the story it told. Her confidence grew with each passing moment, and the music became more expressive, capturing emotions that words could not. The audience, once expecting a moment of ridicule, found themselves immersed in a performance that was moving, inspiring, and unforgettable. The rich man's face revealed a mix of astonishment and frustration. He had underestimated her, assuming that social status and wealth could dictate the outcome of the evening. But the young woman had quietly turned the tables, proving that talent, determination, and composure could defy expectations and earn genuine respect. He took a step back, no longer in control of the situation, as the audience's admiration became increasingly evident. By the time the last few notes lingered in the air, the room erupted into applause. Guests who had initially doubted her ability now offered praise and congratulations, their expressions filled with genuine surprise and respect. The young woman smiled modestly, acknowledging the applause without arrogance. She had faced a challenge that was meant to embarrass her, and had transformed it into a moment of triumph, showing that courage and skill could shine even in the most intimidating circumstances. The rich man, humbled and silent, recognized the lesson in front of him. His attempt to demean her had been turned into a display of her talent and dignity. The guests continued to express admiration, some coming closer to speak to her, to shake her hand, and to commend her extraordinary performance. What had begun as a simple act of servitude had become a defining moment, one that revealed her resilience, confidence, and the depth of her hidden abilities. The young waitress stepped away from the piano, her hands still tingling from the intensity of the performance. She returned to her duties, carrying trays with the same poise as before, but there was a new energy in her step, a quiet pride that radiated from her. The rich man remained in the room, silently acknowledging the unexpected turn of events, while the guests continued to speak of the performance in hushed, impressed tones. The night continued, but the impact of the moment lingered. The music had created a ripple that could not be ignored, changing the way everyone in the room perceived the young woman. She had not only met the challenge but had exceeded every expectation, transforming a potential humiliation into an unforgettable demonstration of talent, composure, and inner strength. Her courage and skill had left a mark on the party, one that would be remembered long after the evening ended. And as she continued to serve the guests, she carried herself with the knowledge that she had faced an extraordinary challenge and emerged not only unscathed but celebrated. The rich man, who had intended to use the evening to assert power, had witnessed a moment that reminded him that true talent and courage cannot be overshadowed by wealth or arrogance. The young woman, once just a quiet presence in the background, had become the center of attention for all the right reasons, proving that dignity, skill, and self-belief can triumph in any situation. After the initial shock of her unexpected talent, the guests slowly regained their composure, yet the energy in the room had changed completely. The lavish party continued, but conversations now carried a different tone, one of admiration and curiosity. People whispered about the young waitress who had captivated everyone, and many guests quietly admitted they had underestimated her. She moved among them, carrying trays with the same grace as before, yet now her confidence had grown, though she did not let it show arrogantly. The rich man, who had hoped to provoke laughter at her expense, now stood quietly, observing the ripple of respect she had created. His usual arrogance seemed subdued, and for the first time in many years, he realized that not everything in life could be controlled or mocked. He watched her with a mixture of astonishment and grudging respect. The realization that she had turned his cruel challenge into a display of talent and courage left him unsettled. The young woman moved carefully through the crowd, refilling glasses and offering polite smiles, but she could feel the eyes of some guests following her. They wanted to speak to her, to know more about the person who had just transformed a moment of potential humiliation into one of pure inspiration. She had learned to remain humble and calm, yet there was a quiet pride within her that she could not hide. Each step she took reflected her composure and resilience, and the faint glimmer of satisfaction that came from proving herself. A few guests approached her, complimenting her performance, their voices full of admiration. One guest, a music enthusiast, asked if she had formal training. She shook her head slightly, smiling, and explained that she had played piano since she was young, practicing whenever she could. The guest listened, fascinated, unable to believe that such talent had gone unnoticed until this moment. It was clear that her story had touched them, reminding everyone that talent and perseverance can be found in unexpected places. Meanwhile, the musicians in the background adjusted their playing to accommodate the lingering notes of her performance, blending their soft music with the echoes of her melody. The piano, which had once been just another piece of the room's elegance, now seemed to carry the memory of her touch, the vibrations of her skill and passion lingering in the air. The mansion, filled with wealth and opulence, now held a subtle reminder that greatness could come from anywhere, even from those often overlooked. The rich man, still standing near the piano, seemed lost in thought. He had intended the evening to be a demonstration of his power, a moment that would entertain at the expense of someone else. Instead, he found himself reflecting on how wrong he had been to underestimate her. He felt an unfamiliar emotion, humility, as he watched the guests continue to admire her. He could no longer dominate the narrative of the night, as the young woman had quietly shifted the focus to her strength and talent. The young waitress continued her work, balancing trays with precision, yet her mind wandered briefly to the piano. The experience of performing in front of a room full of strangers had been nerve-wracking, yet exhilarating. She realized that the courage she had mustered had unlocked a confidence she hadn't fully acknowledged before. The applause, the admiration, and the awe of the guests had left an imprint on her heart, reminding her that even in moments of challenge, one can shine. Some guests lingered near the piano, reminiscing about the performance, discussing the technique, the emotion, and the unexpected talent they had witnessed. Conversations that had once centered on trivial matters now carried genuine interest in her story. They spoke of the hours she must have dedicated to practice, of the patience and discipline required to master such skill. It became clear that she had not only performed beautifully, but had also inspired those around her with her resilience. A few of the wealthier guests, previously skeptical or dismissive, approached her with newfound respect. They asked questions politely, expressing interest in hearing more about her background and her love for music. She responded with humility, explaining that she had always loved music, even though her circumstances had not allowed her the luxury of formal education or recognition. Her story resonated with many, as it highlighted determination, passion, and the courage to rise above challenges. The atmosphere in the room had shifted entirely. What had started as a luxurious party with predictable entertainment had become a space of admiration and inspiration. Guests who had once focused on social status now found themselves reflecting on talent, perseverance, and the unpredictability of life. The young woman, though still performing her duties, had become a symbol of how one's abilities and determination can quietly change perceptions and earn respect. The rich man, though initially silent and somewhat embarrassed, eventually approached her with a respectful nod. It was a small gesture, but it carried a significant meaning, an acknowledgement that she had outshone expectations and had earned genuine respect in a world often dominated by wealth and power. His change in demeanor was subtle but noticeable, and the guests took note, realizing that even those accustomed to control and influence could learn lessons from unexpected moments. As the evening progressed, the young woman found herself moving with renewed energy and confidence. She continued her work seamlessly, but there was a quiet sense of empowerment within her. She had faced a challenge designed to belittle her, and had turned it into a demonstration of her talent, composure, and inner strength. Each interaction she had with the guests now carried the gentle dignity of someone who had faced adversity and emerged stronger. The piano remained a silent witness to the events of the night, its polished surface reflecting the lights and the expressions of awe from the audience. It had been the center of a turning point, a tool that allowed the young woman to reveal her true self and command respect. The notes she had played lingered in the minds of the guests, a reminder that moments of courage and talent can leave lasting impressions. By the end of the evening, conversations among the guests centered not on the wealth or status of the attendees, but on the young woman who had captivated everyone with her music. Her story became the highlight of the night, and many expressed admiration for the courage it had taken to perform under pressure. The rich man, quietly observing the scene, recognized that he had underestimated her, and the lesson was not lost on him. The evening had transformed from a display of privilege into a celebration of talent and human resilience. The young waitress finished her duties and took a brief moment to rest, her hands still tingling from the intensity of the performance. She reflected on how the night had unfolded, realizing that she had discovered a strength within herself that she had never fully acknowledged. Her courage and dedication had turned a potentially humiliating situation into a triumph, leaving a lasting impression on everyone in the room. As she walked through the grand mansion one last time before the party ended, she felt a sense of quiet satisfaction. The guests would remember her not as a servant or an accessory to the rich man's amusement, but as a talented and composed individual who had quietly commanded respect and admiration. The experience had changed her, strengthening her confidence and reinforcing her belief in the power of perseverance, talent, and dignity. The evening carried on, but the atmosphere had shifted completely from the beginning of the party. The music, once soft background noise, now seemed to hum with the memory of the young waitress's piano performance. Guests moved through the mansion with a quiet energy, talking in hushed tones about the unexpected talent they had witnessed. It was as if the walls themselves remembered her melody, and the grand chandelier above reflected the admiration and surprise that lingered in the room. The young woman moved gracefully among the guests, balancing trays with the same poise she always maintained. Yet there was a newfound confidence in her movements. She had faced the challenge meant to embarrass her and had turned it into a display of her skill and composure. That triumph had left her feeling empowered in a way she had never experienced before. Each smile she offered was now accompanied by a subtle sense of pride, though she carried it lightly, refusing to let it seem arrogant. Guests approached her with genuine interest, asking questions about her piano experience and how she had developed her skill. She explained simply, without boasting, that she had practiced in secret, often in quiet moments at home. Many nodded in understanding, some expressing amazement that someone so young and so quietly working could possess such remarkable talent. They were inspired not just by her music, but by her humility and grace in handling a situation that could have been humiliating. The rich man, who had tried to use her to entertain himself, observed the interactions with an unfamiliar feeling. He realized that his plan had completely backfired. Instead of laughing at her, the guests admired her. He had underestimated her, and the experience was humbling. For the first time that evening, he recognized the power of talent and the strength of character. He stood quietly, reflecting on the lesson he had just witnessed. The musicians in the background resumed their playing, but they too were aware of the lasting impression of her performance. The piano had been more than an instrument that night. It had become a bridge between worlds, showing the guests that someone who seemed invisible could command attention with skill and courage. The soft notes of the music seemed to honor her achievement, blending seamlessly with the lingering admiration in the room. Some guests lingered near the piano, discussing the technique and emotion of her performance. They spoke of her timing, the delicacy of her touch, and the confidence she displayed under pressure. Many admitted they had assumed the performance would be awkward or mediocre, only to be completely wrong. The young woman had defied expectations, and her success had become a point of inspiration for those who witnessed it. The conversations revealed not just admiration, but a deeper recognition of the value of perseverance and hidden talent. The rich man, still watching, began to understand how easily pride and arrogance could blind a person to the strengths of others. He had tried to manipulate a situation for his amusement, only to discover that respect and admiration are earned through action, not status. His expression softened slightly, and he made a conscious decision not to interfere further, letting the guests continue to celebrate her accomplishment. It was a quiet acknowledgement that he had underestimated her, and that the lesson she provided was valuable. The young waitress continued her duties with renewed determination. Her interactions with guests now carried a subtle authority, a gentle reminder that she had risen above expectations. While she remained humble, there was no longer any doubt in her own mind about her capabilities. She had faced a challenge designed to diminish her, and she had transformed it into an opportunity to shine. Her composure and skill had turned the narrative of the evening completely around. Guests began to ask for small performances or demonstrations of her skill. Some wanted to see her play simple melodies, while others were curious about how she had mastered more complex pieces. She obliged with quiet patience, demonstrating her abilities without arrogance. The reactions were overwhelmingly positive, with applause and expressions of awe following even the smallest of performances. Her talent was undeniable, and the guests recognized that it had been hidden only because no one had expected it. The atmosphere of the party had evolved from one of casual luxury and socializing to one of admiration and inspiration. The guests were reminded that true talent often exists in unexpected places, and that respect is earned through effort, courage, and grace rather than wealth or status. The young woman, moving seamlessly among the attendees, had become a symbol of quiet strength and perseverance. Her presence was no longer just that of a server. She was a storyteller, a performer, and a person who had changed the mood of an entire evening. The rich man eventually approached her with a quiet nod, a gesture that conveyed respect. He acknowledged the skill and composure she had displayed, even though it challenged his own sense of control over the situation. His recognition, though understated, was meaningful. It reflected an important shift in the dynamics of the room, signaling to others that admiration for talent should be genuine and not influenced by social hierarchy. The young waitress smiled politely, grateful for the acknowledgement but not seeking further praise. Her focus remained on the task at hand, serving the guests with efficiency and grace. Yet there was a newfound lightness in her movements, a sense of accomplishment that had taken root in her spirit. She had faced the potential humiliation of the evening head-on and had emerged not only unscathed but celebrated for her abilities. As the evening progressed, the party gradually began to wind down, yet the memory of her piano performance lingered in every corner of the mansion. Guests discussed the impact of the moment, sharing stories of how they had witnessed someone unexpected command respect through talent and courage. The young woman continued her work, but she knew that her life had changed in a subtle yet significant way. Her confidence had grown, her abilities had been recognized, and she had demonstrated that composure and skill could outshine any attempt to belittle her. The mansion, with its opulent decorations and elegant guests, had become a stage for a story of quiet triumph. The piano, still standing in the center of the room, was a symbol of the evening's events, a reminder that true talent can reveal itself in the most surprising circumstances. The young woman had transformed a situation that could have been humiliating into a demonstration of courage, skill, and resilience. The guests, now aware of her depth and ability, could not help but admire her. By the end of the night, the young waitress reflected on the experiences she had faced. She understood that she had not only demonstrated her talent but had also taught an important lesson to those who had underestimated her. The rich man, though initially intending to embarrass her, had witnessed a moment that would likely remain with him for a long time. A reminder that true skill and strength can never be overshadowed by status or wealth. As she left the grand mansion, the evening's events replayed in her mind. She had faced a challenge, risen to the occasion, and earned the respect of everyone who had witnessed it. The night had started with tension and uncertainty, but it ended with admiration, inspiration, and a quiet sense of empowerment. She realized that even in a world dominated by wealth and privilege, talent, perseverance, and composure could shine through, leaving a lasting impact on all who witnessed it. The young woman walked away from the piano and the crowd, her heart light and her spirit strengthened. The lessons of the night, the power of courage, the importance of skill, and the unexpected recognition of hidden talent, were hers to carry forward. She had faced a moment meant to belittle her and had turned it into a testament to her strength. The memory of the applause, the admiration, and the respect would remain with her, a reminder that even in the most intimidating situations, she could rise, shine, and command the attention she deserved. The night had slowly started to wind down, yet the energy in the grand mansion still hummed with excitement. Guests who had once arrived expecting ordinary entertainment now carried a quiet respect for the young waitress who had stolen the show with her piano performance. Conversations no longer centered solely on wealth, fashion, or social connections. Instead, the guests spoke of the courage and talent they had witnessed. Her performance had left an impression that would linger far beyond the evening. The young woman moved through the mansion with poise, carrying trays of food and drinks, yet her steps felt lighter than before. Each movement carried the confidence she had earned through the night's unexpected challenge. She had faced a situation designed to humiliate her, and instead, she had transformed it into an opportunity to shine. This inner strength radiated from her, and even the guests who were not directly engaged with her could sense it. A few guests approached her, eager to learn more about her musical background. She spoke modestly, explaining that she had practiced piano since she was young, often in quiet moments at home, far from anyone's notice. Some expressed amazement at her skill, unable to believe that someone working as a server could possess such remarkable talent. Others were inspired by her humility, noting that her ability to remain composed in a room filled with judgment and expectations was as impressive as her music. The rich man, who had orchestrated the challenge in the first place, now observed the young woman in silence. His usual smirk had faded, replaced by a subtle reflection of understanding. He realized that his attempt to dominate and control the evening had been turned on its head. The young woman's talent and composure had quietly shifted the balance of power, earning her admiration from all who witnessed it. For the first time, he understood that respect is earned through courage and skill, not status or wealth. The piano still stood at the center of the room, a reminder of the pivotal moment that had transformed the night. The soft notes from the background musicians blended with the lingering echo of her performance, carrying the memory of her talent throughout the mansion. Guests paused as they listened, recalling the precise movements of her fingers, the clarity of the notes, and the emotion she had conveyed. The memory of her playing had become a shared experience, connecting everyone in the room through admiration and awe. The young waitress continued her duties, but she also took small moments to observe the guests' reactions. She noticed nods of approval, whispered conversations about her performance, and the genuine interest in her story. It was clear that she had changed the perspective of many people in the room, proving that talent and perseverance are not defined by social position. Each interaction reinforced the lesson she had taught simply by being herself and embracing the opportunity that had been presented to her. Several guests approached the piano, curious to try it themselves or to discuss the technical aspects of her performance. The young woman offered guidance and shared insights with patience and humility, demonstrating not just her skill, but her generosity of spirit. Her ability to remain calm and approachable despite the attention further deepened the admiration she received. It became evident that her talent extended beyond the music itself. It included composure, grace, and a quiet leadership that resonated with everyone around her. The rich man, noticing the continued respect and admiration she had earned, began to reflect on his actions. He had intended to embarrass her, yet he could not deny the impact of her presence and skill. In that moment, he realized that true power comes not from asserting dominance over others, but from recognizing and appreciating their abilities. It was a subtle but important lesson, one that he would carry with him long after the evening ended. As the night went on, the young waitress found herself at the center of quiet conversations and gentle praise. Guests approached her to express gratitude for the performance, some sharing stories of their own experiences with music or challenges they had faced. These interactions were heartwarming, showing her that her courage and talent had inspired others in unexpected ways. Each smile and word of encouragement reinforced her sense of accomplishment and self-worth. The piano remained a focal point, and the young woman occasionally returned to it, demonstrating a few simple melodies for interested guests. Each time she played, the room seemed to hold its breath, captivated by the beauty and emotion of her music. Even those who had been skeptical or indifferent earlier in the evening could not resist being drawn in by the skill and passion she displayed. The mansion, once filled with superficial chatter, had become a space of genuine connection and admiration. The rich man, observing from a distance, felt a mixture of emotions. There was surprise, certainly, but also a growing respect for the young woman who had turned his plan upside down. He recognized that his assumptions about people and their capabilities had been challenged in a profound way. The evening had provided a lesson he had not anticipated. That talent, composure, and courage could change perceptions and earn respect in ways that no wealth or status ever could. The young woman, carrying trays and moving gracefully through the room, reflected quietly on the events of the evening. She had faced a situation that could have been humiliating, yet she had embraced the opportunity to show her true abilities. The applause, admiration, and recognition she received were not just about her music, but about the strength and poise she had demonstrated. She realized that courage, determination, and composure were just as important as talent in shaping how others perceive us. As the party continued to wind down, guests lingered to share their thoughts and appreciation. They expressed genuine admiration for the young woman, many noting that her performance and demeanor had been unforgettable. Conversations shifted from trivial matters to meaningful discussions about perseverance, hidden talent, and the power of confidence. The young woman's presence had transformed the mood of the evening, leaving a lasting impression on everyone who had witnessed her performance. The rich man, now fully aware of the lesson he had learned, approached the young woman once more. This time, his acknowledgement was quiet but sincere. He offered a polite nod and a few words of respect, recognizing her skill and the dignity she had maintained throughout the evening. It was a small gesture, but one that carried significant weight. The young woman accepted it with grace, understanding that her actions had spoken louder than any words. The young waitress continued to move through the mansion, her duties now accompanied by a quiet confidence and pride. She had faced a challenge designed to undermine her, yet she had turned it into a moment of triumph. The lessons of the night, courage, perseverance, and the power of talent, were hers to carry forward. She understood that even in a world dominated by wealth and status, her abilities and composure had the power to command respect and admiration. By the end of the evening, the mansion had quieted, but the memory of the young woman's performance lingered in the minds of the guests. Her talent and grace had left an indelible mark, transforming what could have been a simple party into an unforgettable experience. She had not only demonstrated her skill at the piano, but also her strength of character, leaving a lasting impression on everyone present. As she finally stepped away from the piano and the center of attention, the young woman reflected on the events of the night. She had faced a situation that could have humiliated her, yet she had emerged with her dignity intact and her talent celebrated. The applause, admiration, and respect she had earned were reminders of her strength and perseverance. She understood that moments of challenge, when met with courage and composure, could reveal the best within us and inspire those around us. The night's experiences left her with a sense of accomplishment and confidence. She had faced adversity, remained composed, and demonstrated her abilities in a way that could not be ignored. The young woman walked through the mansion one last time, carrying herself with quiet pride, knowing that she had turned a potentially humiliating moment into a story of talent, courage, and resilience. The evening had changed her, and in doing so, it had left a lasting impression on all who had witnessed it. The night had grown quiet, the party in the grand mansion slowly drawing to an end. Guests lingered, some sharing private conversations about the remarkable young woman who had so unexpectedly captivated the room. Her piano performance had become the story of the evening, a moment that transformed not only the atmosphere, but also the perceptions of everyone who had witnessed it. What had started as an ordinary party filled with wealth and status had become an event marked by admiration, inspiration, and respect. The young waitress moved gracefully among the remaining guests, her tray of refreshments balanced effortlessly in her hands. Each step she took reflected the quiet confidence she had earned over the course of the evening. Though she remained humble, there was a noticeable difference in her demeanor. She carried herself with the calm authority of someone who had faced a challenge and emerged stronger, someone whose talent and composure could not be overlooked. Guests approached her with curiosity, asking more about her experiences with music. She explained simply that she had learned to play piano at home, practicing in quiet moments when no one was watching. Her voice was calm, modest, and sincere, and the guests were captivated not only by her skill but also by her humility. They listened attentively, expressing genuine admiration for the combination of talent, determination, and grace that had allowed her to transform an intimidating situation into a memorable performance. The rich man, who had initially tried to humiliate her, now observed her with quiet reflection. He realized that his assumptions about people's abilities had been completely overturned. His plan to entertain himself at someone else's expense had failed, but in its place, he had witnessed a display of courage and talent that left a lasting impression. The lesson was subtle but powerful. Respect is earned through skill, perseverance, and character, not through status or wealth. He silently acknowledged that he had been wrong to underestimate her. The piano remained in the center of the room, a shining symbol of the pivotal moment that had taken place. The soft background music played by the other musicians seemed almost to honor her performance, blending with the echo of her notes that lingered in the minds of the guests. Each time she glanced at the instrument, she felt a quiet connection, a reminder of the courage she had summoned to play in front of a room filled with strangers who had initially expected her to falter. The young woman continued her work with care, but she also noticed the subtle changes in the behavior of the guests. Their respect for her had grown, and even those who had arrived with an air of superiority now treated her differently. They approached her with politeness, spoke with genuine interest, and complimented her not just on her music, but on the composure she had displayed. Each interaction reinforced her sense of accomplishment and pride. As the evening progressed, she found herself sharing small conversations about music, life, and perseverance with several guests. They asked questions, offered encouragement, and listened intently as she described her journey with the piano. She remained modest, never boasting, but the story of her dedication and quiet resilience resonated deeply. Guests realized that her talent was not accidental, but the result of years of practice, patience, and determination. Her presence had become a source of inspiration. The rich man, still observing quietly, could not help but reflect on the contrast between his intentions and the outcome. What he had thought would be a source of amusement had become a display of genuine human strength and ability. The admiration she had earned highlighted the importance of humility and respect. For the first time, he understood that influence and control mean little compared to talent, courage, and authenticity. His view of her, and perhaps of the world around him, had shifted. The guests gradually began to leave, but each departure was accompanied by a note of praise or gratitude for the experience of witnessing her performance. They talked among themselves about the young woman who had so confidently transformed a challenging situation into a moment of triumph. Conversations that had once been superficial now carried genuine appreciation for skill, character, and composure. Her influence on the evening would not be forgotten. It had left an impression far beyond the music she played. The young waitress, having completed her duties for the night, finally allowed herself a moment of rest. She reflected on the series of events that had unfolded, recognizing that she had faced a situation that could have been humiliating, but had instead become a defining moment in her life. Her courage, composure, and talent had earned her admiration and respect, not just for her music, but for the person she was and the way she carried herself under pressure. As she glanced at the piano one last time, she felt a sense of closure and accomplishment. The instrument had been a witness to her courage, a tool that allowed her to demonstrate her skill and presence of mind. It symbolized the opportunity she had seized, turning a moment of potential embarrassment into one of triumph and inspiration. She realized that her actions had created a ripple effect, influencing the perception of the guests and even teaching an unexpected lesson to the rich man who had intended to challenge her. The rich man approached her one final time, offering a nod and a few words of respect. Though brief, the gesture was meaningful, acknowledging her composure, skill, and courage. She accepted it with humility, recognizing that her actions had spoken louder than any words. The night had proven that integrity, resilience, and talent can shine through even in the most intimidating situations, leaving an impact that lasts far beyond the immediate moment. The young woman stepped out of the mansion, the night air cool and refreshing against her skin. She carried with her a sense of accomplishment and confidence that had been nurtured through the evening's events. The experience had reinforced her belief in the importance of perseverance, courage, and the quiet power of skill and talent. She understood that she had faced a situation meant to undermine her and had emerged not only unscathed, but celebrated and respected. Walking through the quiet streets, she reflected on the lessons of the night. She had learned that moments of challenge are opportunities to reveal strength and character. She had discovered that humility and composure can command admiration, and that talent combined with courage can change perceptions. The evening had transformed her understanding of her own abilities and had shown her that recognition and respect are often earned in unexpected ways. Her thoughts turned to the guests, many of whom would carry the memory of her performance for years to come. They had witnessed something extraordinary, a person rising above fear and expectation to reveal their true capabilities. She had turned a potentially humiliating situation into an unforgettable demonstration of skill, courage, and dignity. Her actions had inspired, and in doing so had left a lasting impression on all who were present. The young woman realized that the night had changed more than just the perceptions of others. It had changed her own sense of self. She had proven to herself that she could face challenges with poise, turn pressure into opportunity, and command respect through talent and integrity. The piano, the performance, and the admiration of the guests were all reminders that strength and courage can shine brightly, even in the most intimidating circumstances. As she walked further from the mansion, the echoes of her piano performance still seemed to resonate in her mind, a gentle reminder of the night she had conquered fear and transformed expectations. The experience had reinforced her confidence and inspired her to embrace future challenges with the same determination and grace. She understood that true talent is not just in the skill itself, but in the courage to share it, the composure to present it, and the humility to let it speak for itself. By the time she reached her home, the events of the evening had settled into a profound sense of accomplishment. She had faced a challenge designed to diminish her, yet she had turned it into a moment of triumph. The applause, admiration, and respect she had earned were more than temporary recognition. They were validation of her perseverance, skill, and character. She knew that this night would remain a defining moment, a story she would carry with her for the rest of her life. The young woman took a deep breath, feeling the quiet pride and satisfaction that came from overcoming a formidable challenge. She understood that her actions had demonstrated the power of courage, talent, and dignity. The rich man, the guests, and even the mansion itself had witnessed her transformation from a quiet server into a respected and admired musician. The night had proven that true recognition comes not from wealth or social status, but from the ability to face challenges with skill, composure, and integrity. As she settled into the quiet of her home, she reflected on the lessons she had learned. She knew that life would continue to present challenges, but the experience of the evening had shown her that she was capable of rising to meet them. She had discovered the strength within herself to turn fear into opportunity, and she understood that courage and talent, when combined with humility and grace, could leave a lasting impact on everyone around her. The night's events had concluded, but the story would not be forgotten. The guests would remember the young waitress, not as a simple server, but as someone who had transformed a moment of potential embarrassment into a testament to skill, courage, and human dignity. The piano would remain in the mansion as a silent witness to the evening, carrying with it the echoes of a performance that had left an indelible mark on all who experienced it. And so, the young woman's journey continued, strengthened by the experiences of the night. She had faced a challenge designed to belittle her, and she had risen above it with grace, talent, and courage. The respect and admiration she had earned were lasting reminders of her strength, and the lessons she had learned would guide her through future challenges. The evening had been a turning point, a story of triumph, and a testament to the power of skill, composure, and integrity in shaping how the world